All right, in this video, I'm going to go over the questions from the second review from chapter 3. All right, so this one is going to be solely focused on composition. So there were kind of three different types of composition we did during class in this unit. The first one was composition of functions with x. So I'm going to start by kind of reviewing that process. The way I do it is I look at the first letter in my composition. So this says f of g of x. So since it says f of g of x, I'm going to copy down the f of x function. But instead of putting my x's, I'm going to put boxes. So box squared minus box minus 1. And inside the box is where I'm going to put my inside function, g of x. So this g of x is going to go in the box. So negative x minus 4 goes in both of these boxes, and make sure you use parentheses. All right, so now I'm going to distribute negative x minus 4 squared. Again, if you need to write out twice, right, two of them and multiply, that's fine. The way I do it is I take the first one and I square it. Negative x squared is positive x squared. I take the second one and I square it. Negative 4 squared is 16. And then to find the middle term, it's the first term times the second term times 2. So negative x times negative 4 is positive 4x. Positive 4x times 2 is positive 8x. All right? Subtracting a negative x is really adding x. Subtracting a negative 4 is really adding 4, and then bring down the minus 1. Get your like terms. So I've got x squared. 8x plus 1x is 9x. 16 plus 4 is 20. 20 minus 1 is 19. So this is f of g of x. All right, so that's the composition. Probably the hardest one that you'll see in terms of the most difficult with expanding that binomial squared. All right, let's do number 2. It says g of f of x. So g is what I'm going to copy down first. So g of f of x, so it's going to be 3 box plus 5. So I'm going to be putting my inside function of f of x in the box. You know what, I should probably use a larger box. There we go. All right, so inside this box is going to be x squared plus x plus 6 in parentheses. Now this one is, I don't, none of this is like technically easy, but in terms of the algebra that has to be done to simplify, it is more simple in the sense that you don't have to expand a binomial square. This 3 is just going to multiply by all 3 of these terms inside the parentheses. So you get 3x squared plus 3x plus 18 and bring down the plus 5. So the only like terms I have to deal with are the 18 plus 5, which is 23. So this is g of f of x. All right, so that's kind of the ways that we did composition where it was a letter x, right? F of g of x, g of f of x. All right, so hopefully you've had a chance to practice this a bunch. Okay, let's do the next wave of composition, which was now, instead of f of g of x or g of f of x, this time it's g of f of a number, right? F of g of a number. So the way I do this is different than the way I just did it before, right? Now, instead of starting with the first letter, which is what I did in 1 and 2, I'm going to work inside out. So really what I do is in my brain, I essentially just imagine, and I'm going to erase that. So if you're using a pen, don't do that, right? I'm really just going to imagine it's f of 6, right? So I'm going to do f of 6. So 6 squared minus 6 times 6 plus 1. So that's going to be 36 minus 36 plus 1. 36 minus 36 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. So f of 6 is 1. Now, this is not my answer, right? This is f of 6. So what I then do is in my brain, I say, okay, if this is g of f of 6, well, f of 6 is the same as 1. So I'm going to do g of 1, and this will give me my composite answer. So g of 1 is 5 times 1 plus 15. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 plus 15 is 20. So this whole thing, g of f of 6 is 20. All right, that's the process I do for composition when it is a number. So let's do the same process here for f of g of -3. Again, I imagine this is not here. Again, I'm not just going to, I am going to erase that once I get this value. So g of -3 is the opposite of -3 minus 4. The opposite of -3 is 3. And 3 minus 4 is -1. So g of -3 is -1. So I erase this, and my brain says, okay, it's f of g of -3. Well, g of -3 is -1. So it's f of -1. If I do that, then I will get my answer. So 3 times -1 squared minus 7 times -1 minus 3. All right, so here we go. -1 squared, we do that first. -1 squared is 1. 1 times 3 is 3. A -7 times a -1 is a +7. Bring down the -3. So 3 plus 7 is 10. 10 minus 3 is 7. So f of, let me do a little further this one. F of g of -3 equals 7. All right, that's composition when it is a value. So the next ones, the last two, and then we'll be done with this review. The last two are just like 3 and 4, right? But instead of giving you the function, they're going to give you the graphs. So it's the same process where we kind of ignore the outside and work inside out, but it's going to be a little tougher to kind of organize it in your brain. So again, what I do is I ignore the first letter, and I'm trying to find f of 0. So I go to my f of x function, right? F of 0, right? Here is 0. That's 0. Here's my point, which is 0, 2. So I'm going to write down that f of 0, right? F of 0 equals 2. But that's not what it asks for. It asks of g of f of 0. Well, if f of 0 is the same as 2, then to find what this is, I do g of 2, because that is the same as f of 0. So now, what was my y value here, right? That's my y coordinate, is now you'll notice my x coordinate when I move to the other function. So now I'm going to 2, which is right here. All right, right there. And I'm looking for where is my function. Here it is at 2, -5. So this y value of -5 ends up being my overall answer. So g of f of 0 equals -5. So again, it's a little bit more complicated than 3 and 4, but the idea is the same. We work inside out to find the composite value. Let's do the next one. All right, so the next one says f of g of -5. So I'm going to ignore the outside and just do g of -5. So go to g. Here's -5. My function is right there, which is -5, -2. So that is equal to -2. So in my brain, I undo that, erase that. So now I want to do f of g of -5, which is the same as -2. So -2 was the y value over here. Now it's going to be the x value here. So go to f of x, look at -2. Here's -2. There's the y value. So it's -2, -3. So the y value of -3 is my answer for this composite value. So f of g of -5 is -3. So it's one of those things that's going to take a little while. If it hasn't already clicked, right, just keep practicing. Eventually you'll kind of click with the order in which you're supposed to do this. Again, when you have a number in your composite functions, you kind of work inside out, ignore the first letter at the beginning, and then you'll deal with it once you find that value of the inside. All right, so that's it. Good luck. Don't forget, lots of ways to practice this, and good luck on the test.